And welcome to Around to Product Development, our weekly show where we, in 25 minutes, feature lively discussions on hot topics in digital product creation. We talk about everything from monetization to innovation, and we all cover it in just 25 minutes. No fluff, just actionable insights from digital product practitioners and creators who are part of our Agile Product Builders community. So maybe to share, the Agile Product Builders community is a Slack community powered by Boldare, digital product creators, and consultants. And this week we have an event under the name Always Be Prototyping, and we will discuss some prototyping strategies with Oskar Kwitek, who is product manager at Boldare. And I shouldn't say product strategist, although he also is kind of a product strategist. We'll learn how prototyping can save you from product risk, why many people, or maybe everyone, misunderstands what prototyping is. And I've learned about Oskar as well that he has been a skipper in his past life, directing a boat, if it's true, but I'm not sure if it's completely true. So I'm curious about that as well, how that happened. It's always a nice sidetrack. Oskar, welcome to our webinar today. And maybe you can introduce yourself, and maybe you can tell me as well about the skipper part, if you want to at least.
Thank you, Matt. Very welcome to be here with you today. I'm pretty, excited about the idea about 25 minutes about product development, since the prototyping itself, it's 100% aligned with this really tight schedule we have today. So I'll try my best to show you what hands-on experience, what tools, what approach to take in order to take the most effective way out of prototyping or POCs, proof of concepts. Skippering part, yes, this is always, it's some part of your career that you just want to live it all and do the ocean, do the forest, do the mountains. So in my case, this was the ocean, 100%. And yeah, I've been for a while a professional skipper doing the Mediterranean, Caribbean cruises. So if you're interested, most of the times I do it with my friends, but I believe the Agile Product Builders community is kind of a friend area you can share your ideas with. 100% recommend myself for being a skipper next time you do the sailing.
Beautiful. So I have to be honest, I never went on a sailing trip before. That's why I was interested on it. And I think many of the people in the community and listening have not been as well. So I think we can all come to you now, and maybe you can take us on a boat trip next time.
100%, yeah.
Thank you so much. So Oskar, we're talking about prototyping today. And I will be very honest, prototyping, maybe you can just tell me what your understanding is from it. My understanding, maybe just to share, we have to build a product, we have to start with prototyping, and then we move on to all other stages that involve like product development. Not sure if it's right, maybe it's half right, but maybe you can just explain what you understand under prototyping and what it is exactly.
Definitely. Matt, you're 100% right. This is about testing, about sketching out your ideas. I would say before committing to the final design project, product, whatever it is. From my perspective, the prototype or prototyping process is just a tool you use to validate some assumptions, ideas, experiments, in order to start working on tangible version of your product or of your idea, because it doesn't need to be necessarily the product. It could be just the approach, so the validation of the approach, of the process. We can use prototypes in very different contexts and scenarios. So after the phase of the prototyping, there's usually the testing, as I said, the validation of the experimentation process, refinement, and then it could be another prototype process, another one as we go closer to the final goal. Or we say, no, this is not the way we want to go for. And then we start, from the scratch again. So prototyping is just, continuous discovery, very connected to the part you just said. So the product development, what I call delivery process.
And did I understand it right that product development, because for me, product development, prototyping, to me, it's almost like I imagine like a car, maybe, right? A physical product, you have a prototype of it very early, doesn't drive really well, but maybe does something, you can see how it goes. And then we're talking about product development, right? So I can imagine digital products might have as well a prototype. But did I understand it clearly from you that you can also prototype ideas or thoughts or like a process maybe? Because that's quite new to me, I have to be honest. So I'm not sure how that will work.
Definitely. So whenever you start creating a car or designing something, you just want to make sure that you're on the same page with the audience you provide this product or service for, right? So first of all, you want to, as the Lean startup approach says, fail fast and learn as quickly as possible. To mitigate the biggest risks, you always can align with whatever you do. So maybe let's start with this one, because whatever you do, if it's a process, product, service, there are 4 risks you need to mitigate or you need to validate in order to create a successful approach in this one. So I'll start with desirability, which is let's say the response of the market. So does the feature, process, product, your car, for example, is wanted by the market, by the users? Then the next one, if you can actually make it. So if it's feasible, do you have a team, skills, the technology allows you to do it right now? Then, of course, the money factor, which is the viability. Will you make money on it? Does it really come with the profit, right? Because sometimes whenever we think about whatever we want to make, there is a new feature that would improve the user experience or whatever, or in general, let's say the view of our product, but where's the business behind it? And the last but not least is the usability, which means like, will users figure out how to use this feature, product, process? Will it be self-explanatory, or it's just some small help just to help them validate your idea? So 100%, you can validate everything on the way, and definitely you're supposed to do so in order to make it the most effective in terms of any kind of resources you can imagine.
And to make sure there's less risk, right? So that's one of the big reasons to prototype, if I get it right,
Definitely,
right? Don't want to have that much risks, so we prototype so we can understand the risks maybe and avoid them, right?
Definitely, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe about prototyping as well, right? So it's a process at the beginning when we start, right? Is it like a thing that comes back a few times as well? Like, how should I understand it? Is it something that comes back in the next phase again? Is it something that we only do once? And I read an article, actually, I have to be honest about it, right? That shared a little bit about prototyping being more a constant thing, but I cannot really imagine how that will work because, again, for me, it's like we start with this prototype, then it's gone. This prototype moves out of the window, right? We kick it out, we move forward with our lives, and this prototype never comes back. But I read also an article that says it can be like coming back in multiple stages even, right?
Right. So basically, this is one of the biggest, I would say, mistakes or misunderstandings in terms of the prototyping. As I said at the very beginning, this is the tool you use on every single stage of product or whatever development process, which means there is no one-time activity, no one-stop shop that you just do the prototype, validate the idea, and go further with the team, develop at how it was validated before. Prototyping, fortunately, because of our dynamic environments, we all want to not only survive but thrive. Is pretty essential tooling for now in terms of reaching this goal. Do you use prototyping in your job? I do have the quiz showing me. Okay, so this is our quiz. Yes, of course I do. Let me answer it. Yeah. Coming back to the point. I use prototypes almost every day. I mean, like, it's not only the prototype itself, it's about what you want to validate, how you plan your process of experimentation. What are your assumptions or your client's assumptions or other stakeholders? What are the trends on the market you want to check if it's gonna work in your case or not? Because just copying whatever the market brings to you every single day. Now it's such a dynamic presence of AI or other tools that you could use actually, totally different approach every single day. You always want to validate in your case scenario if it's going to work or not. So prototyping as a whole process, I would say. So I started with the strategy, the process of experimentation, assumptions, trying to put them from the riskiest to, let's say, the most we're confident with them, and then validating them as the most appropriate, I would say, approach you could take in order to mitigate the risks and in all costs.
So, and Oscar, if I'm going to be honest, right? So prototyping, not only a thing we start at the beginning, but like, right, misunderstanding, we can use it through all stages. Doesn't it become very costly and expensive and taking a long time if we need to prototype all the time? And maybe if it's internal, it's a bit easier, but if you hire a company for it, like, doesn't it get very expensive very quickly? I pretend to be an honest business owner, right? Just asking this question, but I can imagine that people wonder about. So is it like, does it give an ROI? Is it efficient in the end? Does it like give something back?
Yeah, it is a fair question. I usually, come across at some point of our projects, because whenever you start doing the development process, there's always, let's say, this gray area if we're supposed to plan ahead, if there are some, major fires that's supposed to be burned down at first. But definitely, in terms of the prototyping, it is a cost generator. You can't say it doesn't, because you need to sit down, you need to create a strategy, you need to get to know your users. So you need to create any kind of, personas, interviews, etc. So to better understand their needs, right? You need to sit down, create those assumptions and experiments, then plan them, then make, the processes, etc., etc. So it does generate cost. But if you think about lean strategy, lean approach, and failing first, learning faster than your competitors, you don't want to wake up one day, developing the whole product, putting a lot of money in it, and then realizing that it doesn't create an engagement you would like to achieve. It doesn't, meet the objectives you had at the very beginning, or there's some other trend on the market that actually changes the landscape completely, and you need to start from the scratch. And I had some of these experiences in my past career. So that's why I never, like, if you are satisfied with your prototype, if you're proud of your prototype, you probably put a lot too much effort in it that you're supposed to. So you're always supposed to be ashamed with your prototypes, try to validate whatever comes to your mind, because this is all your assumptions or your customers' assumptions or your business owner's assumptions, but not validated by the market. And that's what prototyping is about. So to validate it quickly and reduce this cost, because it's always about the cost. But if we compare the costs of changes later on, it's a huge difference.
So a bit of long-term thinking versus short-term thinking as well in that, right? Long-term ROI, efficiency, cost saving versus short-term cost saving, whatever it is, right? But then my follow-up question, very honest, maybe very direct. If I need some prototyping, right? I develop a product. What does it cost me? Are we talking about a couple of thousands of euros or dollars? Are we talking about tens of thousands euros or dollars? Are we talking about hundreds of thousands? I have no idea, right? So maybe for the business owners that are curious as well.
Right. So from my perspective, this could be 100% free. There are a lot of free trials of every, major tools you could use in the internet and do, we call it mashups. So we combine different tooling in order to provide like the full experience. And then based on this, 10, 20, 30 days trial, you can actually validate some of your ideas in it and just reduce cost to the very minimum. Just, let's say your effort and your time. in this case. But definitely, you can start from the 0 to, depends on the feature, depends on the product, depends how complicated it is. But I would say it's always, again, way cheaper than development of the actual feature, testing it, and then changing it completely, because it takes, time and effort of the team, planning, design. It's just so much connected, constellations within the product development later on. I'm not even talking about the technology or the data you can take.
Yeah.
So this is completely different. I would
So
say
for the curious people,
yeah,
anywhere between 0 and whatever you want, right? So it can go very far,
definitely.
probably.
But let's try focus closer to the 0 end than the X amount of money, 100%. Prototypes, they're supposed to be cheap, fast, very, very effective in terms of the validation, right? This is not about something you want to be proud of. This is something you want to make sure that whenever you invest money later on, this is going to pay back.
Yeah, well, very nice approach as well. And I think it makes sense, right? As a business owner, especially, you don't want to spend a ton of money. It makes sense to be frugal as well, and anywhere between 0 and anywhere you want to be. So that's good.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
If it comes to prototyping, is there a specific approach you need to follow? Is there a specific strategy you need to follow? Or is it like free for all? How does it look like? I assume that in your experience, right, with years of experience, there is some kind of logic in it to follow, right? Some kind of fundamental pathways to go, or some steps.
Right. So I use different terms throughout our conversation, which is the hypothesis, assumption, the experiment, right? So you want to make sure that your prototyping process is very rigid, strict in terms of how it's conducted. Because whenever we start going through, testing too many things, for example, at the same time, this actually may generate more cost and effort than it's needed to validate some of the ideas, some of the assumptions you may have. So definitely the validation plan, definitely you need to start whenever you start mapping your assumptions, ideas, because it starts with the idea, right? So I say that my product needs to have this feature, and I have no idea if it's a valid one or not, right? So then I want to make sure that this feature is, bringing value to some specific group of my customers, and it's going to be validated in this way, for example, through connecting to some analytical tool. And then based on the results, if it's a positive or negative, I act accordingly. So this is a very, again, important step. Whenever the validation of the prototype is negative, so it's not as you assume it would be, a success. This is a tricky one, because from my perspective, the success is both. Like whenever it's negative or positive, because you learned something on the way. But let's say it's negative in terms of like what you assumed. A lot of people stick to the idea or doesn't believe the customers, doesn't believe the clients in terms of like what's their voice. And this is another very common concept of handling prototypes a bit wrong. But definitely you need to have rigid process, rigid way, very structured way to handle it from the strategic point of view. What ideas are coming to your, let's say, pool of assumptions? Who's the giver of them? So stakeholders, market trends, they said, or your competitors. Then trying to prioritize them at somehow using different prioritization techniques. Then just doing the job. So actually validating them through different techniques. If it's the interview or campaigns or pre-sales or some simulations, or you just test it, whatever is let's say the most suited to your case.
And Oskar, you mentioned actually how the process should work, right? And it's easy to make some mistakes. We have only 5 more minutes left to this talk, so I think I want to ask you 2 more questions maybe. So
Let's do it.
are there some risks in prototyping? Is there a downside to it that we maybe don't see? I honestly cannot imagine of any, but I'm sure you've encountered some in your career. So are there any risks we're taking? Is there something that we should be aware of?
This depends on the, let's say, the business sectors, because sometimes whenever you work in a very formal, let's say, environment, for example, like banking finances, whenever there's like a regulatory layer on it, sometimes it's very hard to create those fast, effective prototypes. I was working with one bank that, they showed me that the prototype that had like 1 million lines of code, which was like almost full.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was like a full product, could be released easily to the customers, but never actually validated if it's good or not. So depends on the environment, but I would just reiterate that the most mistakes to be made whenever we're thinking about the prototyping, which is getting too attached to your initial idea, ignoring user feedback, not actually working on the user feedback you collect on the way, and 100% overcomplicating the prototypes. But
maybe more of a problem. Yeah, maybe more of a problem of the companies itself or the process than actually of the prototyping, right? Let's not blame the prototyping, I would say, in this case, right?
Exactly. So as I said, prototype is a tool. You just use it in a very specific way. Of course, needs to have the background of the company you do the prototype in, but definitely it's just a tool. It could be misused easily.
Like any, yeah. And maybe to give our audience some practical tips, what are some tools, websites, resources they should be looking at, maybe when they get into prototyping, but maybe also when they know a little bit about it? So where can they start, and maybe what's interesting to you? Where do you look at?
Definitely. So my, let's say, prototype Bible, it was always the testing business ideas. This is made by the Strategizer. Great source of knowledge in terms of the prototyping techniques, experimentation, why we do it. So I would start with this one. And then you have just a line of tools you could use all the time: Listna, Proto.io, Figma, Canva, Sketch, and Vision. There are so many of them right now on the market. I'll try to link them later on in our Slack channel, so it's going to be easier for you to navigate through and just give you some, tips in what circumstances they're the best to go to. But definitely, if you don't have any idea about the prototyping itself, the testing business idea, but Strategizer is the go-to position.
Yeah, but lots of resources available online if people search for it, I guess, right?
100%.
Beautiful. So let me check 1 second. I think there's a question from the audience. Let's see if I can still answer it or see it. Yeah, the question is how to prepare a SaaS prototype when I would like to check whether a user is ready to pay for it. They are always like great product while using product, and when it comes to a ready product, they're like, nah, I'm not going to pay for this. Is mocking the pay button a solution? Won't the user be frustrated? And if you can keep it short, Oskar, so we don't go too far above the 25 minutes.
Yeah, so not going through the, let's say, the context of it, definitely pay button or sign on button is the way. Then just make sure that your users know what's going next. So if there is a pay button, there's supposed to be some models, some pop-ups, some information that you're working on this feature, on this marketplace, on this SaaS product, right, of yours. And it's going to be available in some, I don't know, matter of time. It's going to bring you value or whatever. And for example, you could be signed as the early adopter to test it later on, right? So definitely the most, let's say, proof you can get is just taking the leads, taking the users from trying to pay for it. If they're willing to do so, you're good. Definitely pay button, sign on button, whenever it makes the users convert in the way you want it. Very effective way of validating.
All right. Oskar, thank you for a lovely talk today. It was a pleasure talking to you. Very interesting. I would say you've taken us on an interesting boat ride across the prototyping lake or sea as a true skipper. It was very nice to navigate together with you. So thank you one more time for joining for me and from the audience. And for the audience, I just would like to say one more time, you're very welcome to join the Agile Product Builders community. It will be shared so you can click and join actually. And for next week, I would like to invite you to a talk with one of our community members, Agile coach Todd Langford. And he will actually tell us something very interesting. It's what leaders can do to get short-term improvements from their teams. I think something that everyone is interested actually, because we all want improvements. We all want it short-term and we're all working in teams. So very welcome to see you next week, Monday at 3 p.m. CET. Oskar, thank you one more time for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you. And for the rest of you all, have a very nice day and see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.